used these cameras before, or if we're like the test group.
I think we're the test group.
Mm.
There we go.
I like the song though. This is
Hey, welcome to another episode of Common Ground. I'm your host, Brian Hartgraves, and we're here today with 3 District 1 Legislative Council candidates, 2 of them who are current members but rerunning. So I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll get into some topics. Chris, why don't you start?
Sure. My name is Chris Gardner, and I live in District 1. I've actually always lived in District 1. I grew up in Newtown, went away to school, came back, got married. We had 2 children go through the Newtown Public Schools. Both are out of the school district. And I've been on the Board of Finance. I'm on the Legislative Council now. I am a senior burgess in the borough of Newtown, and I'm Newtown's keeper of the flagpole, which means that I take care of our iconic flagpole in the center of town. I've done that for about 10 years.
That's great. All right, thank you. And I'm going to skip Laura for a minute and go on to Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris Eide. I'm also running for Legislative Council District 1. I actually grew up in District 3, so I'm a little bit of a transplant. I grew up in town. I've lived here for just shy of 40 years. Now I have 3 kids in town, all in the Newtown school system. I formerly served on the Legislative Council for 6 years between 2015 and 2021. And at that point, my wife told me that I was not allowed to run again. So it took a little bit of time off. And now that my youngest is in kindergarten, I'm looking to get involved again.
All right, that's great. Okay, now finally, Laura Miller, welcome. I know Chris and
Chris.
The Chris's.
The Chris's were both on before. This is your first time.
It is.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Laura Miller. I also live in District 1. I moved here 25 years ago, so I'm the newcomer among us. I did raise my children here. 3 children went through the schools. I am currently on the Legislative Council running for re-election. I formerly was on the Board of Finance. My day job is a principal at an alternative and special ed school. And I am loving life in Newtown, and I want to participate, and that's why I'm running again.
All right, great. So welcome, everyone. Chris, you're coming back. Tell us what's motivating you to rerun.
Well, number one is I'm allowed to again. So my wife said I'm good, and I'd like to be involved again. I never really wanted to leave in the first place. But I really think with 3 kids kind of going through the school system, being involved in town activities, it's important to have a town government that is kind of supporting those things, giving them the opportunity to have the same experience growing up that I did. I had great schools when I was in Newtown schools. I had the services through Parks and Rec, and if we don't properly fund those services, I'm worried that the quality of them is going to suffer. So I want to continue ensuring that we put forth a good experience for kids in town growing up.
All right, great. I know the budget's always a big piece of conversation in town. I'll start with you, Chris. If you're elected again, how will you sort of handle the budget process, and what do you think is the important pieces of it?
Sure. So during this term right now, I've been chair of the Finance Subcommittee. And as a subcommittee, we literally went through every line of the municipal budget. From department to department, just looking for ways to try to economize. And when we got to the end, we found about $50,000 in a multi-million-dollar budget that we said, maybe we don't need this. The problem with any town is that so many of these jobs are kind of state mandated. You have to have a fire marshal. You have to have a tax collector. The state requires you to do so, and we need that. Over the years, we've looked for opportunities to try to save some money in various areas. And I kind of feel like we've run out of places to look. If I'm reelected, what I'd like to do is kind of take a holistic look at our town government and see if there are any ways we can try to collaborate, combine departments. I'm not talking about laying anybody off, but just looking for ways to try to economize a little bit, because right now the municipal budget is really, really tight. Yeah. Our options, might be to, I don't know. I mean, do you stop, mowing ball fields, for example? That's kind of the point that we're at. There aren't too many other opportunities to really find big savings. Because we've looked. I've spent 6 years looking as member of the Board of Finance and member of the Legislative Council. We've lost some really good services over the years. As we've tried to economize. So again, I think just kind of going through that budget piece by piece and working together as Democrats, as Republicans, with an eye toward trying to find the most value for our residents, and trying to find a balance between what we absolutely require and what everybody else wants.
Yeah. Laura, how do you make that process transparent for the residents? I think for a lot of folks, it's a tough process to understand because there's so many different departments that are involved. Do you have any ideas to make that more transparent?
So we are very fortunate to have a chair who encourages a lot of dialogue when we are going through this budget, because the budget books are hundreds of pages. I chaired the municipal side of the budget, and we go through page by page by page. And then we also go through, even though we're not on that committee, the Board of Ed budget, which becomes the place where everyone wants to cut. So we talk a lot about, we didn't find anything, where could we look, where can we economize? And that dialogue, I think, helps people understand what we go through and how we don't expect them to go through that. They expect us to go through it and explain it to them. And I think that's our main goal during the budget season, is to explain where the money comes in, where it goes out, and to help them prioritize. Yeah. And just the talking and getting the word out there.
Yeah. All right, Chris, I know there's a lot of capital improvements, too, that have to happen in town. How do we prioritize those to make sure that the important things get done first?
I think that's such an important point. And I mean, it kind of ties in with what we've been talking about, because a big part of the budget is debt service. And debt service is one that we did improve when I was on the council. We brought our bond rating up to a AAA, and we helped improve it a little more. We took a year off from bonding to try to bring down the amount that we owe. So like some of these discussions we're talking about funding the budget, capital's a great place to put it. We ended up funding a lot of road improvements via the capital improvement plan when I was on the council, because there were cuts made to roads in an effort to reduce taxes that then left the roads in a state where we actually had to bond to catch up on that road work so that we wouldn't have such a severe increase in taxes over 1 year. So when we are planning these capital improvements, we should be erring on the side of what we need versus what we want, right? Which is going to help bring down that debt service, but we should also be looking to grow the amount that we're spending via things like our capital non-recurring fund. We grew unassigned fund balance by a good margin when I was on the council, and we've used that to spend down to offset some expenses as well. I think that the more we could move away from using debt to fund our town needs and move towards funding it via taxes would be better.
So you talked about roads. Maybe let's talk about traffic. That's always on the forefront of residents' minds. I'll start with you, Chris. I guess I can just always say Chris. I
was going to say, you're right 2 out of 3 times.
Tell me about your thoughts on how do we improve the traffic situation in town?
Right. That's a difficult question to answer. We all know traffic is terrible in this community. I live off of Route 25, as does Laura, and my wife and I, we don't go into town on Thursday nights and Friday nights after 4:30 because you just can't get there. It just takes too long. One of the big drivers of that is traffic on 84. If Waze tells you that it's faster to go through Newtown, you're going to get off at exit 9 if you're heading east and then get back on at exit 10 or exit 11, even if it saves you 30 seconds. So one of the things that I would like to do, both as a town official and also a resident of the borough, is see if we can work with probably the state to lower the speed limit on Main Street. Maybe, I think the speed limit right now is 30. I'd like to see if we could lower it maybe to 25. Because that would change the calculation that Waze uses to determine which way is faster, to stay on 84 or to take traffic off of 84 and put it on a Main Street. So that's something, again, as a borough official and as a town official, I would like to see us do, because I think that would help keep traffic on 84.
Yeah. Laura, speed cameras, speed bumps, more police, none of the above. What are your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts on that because I'm on the ordinance committee as well, and we are under review for the speed cameras right now. Those are Band-Aids to maybe what we really want, which is, as Chris said, fewer cars. And if they don't get off the highway, they don't come through town. I really love the idea of working on the speed limit, because I live off 25 and they fly down that road and then they have to slam to a stop as they get closer to Main Street. Speed cameras can assist the police in slowing down cars. They sometimes have a history of causing more rear end accidents because people see the speed camera or the sign that there's a speed camera, and that can cause trouble as well. And you're limited as to where you can put speed cameras, and the tickets for those are automated, which some people do not care for. So if speeding is the issue and traffic is the issue, I like the idea of lowering it on Main Street, because that is a 2-in-1.
Yep, great.
For us.
All right, and Chris, again, it's pretty easy to say that. Part of I think some of the traffic in town is the increase in housing. More housing's coming in. Thoughts on how we manage that?
I've been fairly dubious of the claim that housing is the thing that's really driving it. I think that if you were to stand on the side of the road and watch the cars go by, you're going to see a lot of New York plates. You're going to see a lot of Massachusetts plates. And we know, we've been on 84. This is a lot of diverted traffic, right? You're not finding traffic just around where the new housing is being developed. You're finding traffic on the route that you would take if 84 was backed up, which is what people are doing. So to me, this is something we got to look at our Hartford delegation and kind of say, how are you advocating for us in Hartford right now? These are state roads. We'd love to put up stoplights at the intersection of Currituck and 25, right? That's where people get really backed up, is they can't make that left out. I mean, I know, I live right there, and you end up in those lines sometimes, and it's one person who really isn't all that confident, and you end up sitting there for a good 5 minutes until they feel like they can go. Hartford's got to do something. You know, the ball is in their court. It really is. And Newtown residents are suffering. So I would look at our Hartford delegation and say, guys, what are we doing right now? What are we saying to the state? This is their road.
All right. So you've been on the Legislative Council for how long?
4 years.
4 years. And any major achievements that you'd like to sort of promote?
So in my first term, when I was on the wrong end of a supermajority, it was 9 Republicans, 3 Democrats. I actually worked with the Republican chair of the Ordinance Committee to bring about some senior tax relief, to rewrite our ordinance that allowed for more seniors in town to qualify for tax relief on their property taxes, which was a really good thing for us to do, and it really made me feel good, because I mean that directly impacted, our residents. I think it's time that we take another look at that. It's been 2 years since we looked at that, and see if we can change the income limits. The issue is when you do that, younger people end up paying a larger share of the budget. So we have to be kind of careful and just mindful of what we're doing. But I'm very much aware that there's a lot of pressure on our town seniors to pay the taxes as they rise every year. So again, it's just finding a balance. What can we do to help them without overburdening younger families? But I think if I look at the past 4 years, that's the accomplishment I'm most proud of, is helping our seniors qualify for more tax relief.
That's great. And how about you, Laura?
I actually was going to piggyback on that, because the Ordinance Committee this time extended the deadline for seniors to apply, because some were missing them due to illness or hospitalization, maybe missing the mail, and a resident came to us with that scenario, and we were able to work with the town lawyer and get that extension in. That's one of them. I'm also just really proud of how well the Democrats have worked together, actually with the Republicans, because we're on committees with all the Republicans as well, and to get our town needs really established. We've got some issues with water and sewer, and some issues, like you said, with development, the traffic, and we, at least I feel like the Democrats, are very solution oriented. Like, what are we doing long term? Can we modify the speed cameras and where they go, or things like that? And that I am proud of, because it does take experience to do that. We, Board of Finance, and then being on Legislative Council, you do get the bird's eye view of everything, but we understand the nuts and bolts. And I think that is way more important than just saying, I think we should cut the education budget, and not have a rationale and not know where it's going to come from.
Yep. Great. And how about you, Chris, when you were in before you took your leave of absence?
I was going to say, it's actually funny, because the thing I was going to say is the senior tax relief, because I think I was serving on the ordinance committee the last time it was touched before you got to it. Right. So yeah, that was one, but I guess since it's taken, I'll go with when I served as chair of Finance and Administration, we did a revision of the CIP policy. Mm-hmm. And that's helping guide the decisions that we're making in terms of capital improvements and debt bonding in town. And I think that those are really important. Monitoring our debt levels in town and continuing to make sure that our credit worthiness keeps our credit rating at a rate where we're getting the advantage of that high bond rating.
Yep. How do you manage development in town? That there's affordable housing, that there's senior housing, that it's a place where everybody can come and live and work, all up and down the job spectrum. Thoughts on that?
Well, I think that we have zoning, and we need to follow what our zoning says. So thoughtful zoning is where that is going to come from ultimately. So granted, on Legislative Council, we have a little bit less to do with kind of the specific zoning, but we do help with growth sometimes. So like when Tractor Supply first came into town, we were able to offer them kind of a tax incentive to do so. And because of that, they invested a lot of money in that building. They brought a lot of inventory in, and it helped grow our tax base of commercial properties, which really Newtown's kind of lacking in, right? Our tax base is disproportionately residential relative to other communities around us. Mm-hmm. And because of that, our residents feel a lot more of the tax burden that people from other towns don't necessarily. So I think that where we can in the Legislative Council, by doing things like, if we're competing with one other town and a little bit of a tax incentive would help land a business coming here, that's something I think we should think about and do, thoughtfully and responsibly. Not that we want to just throw money at businesses to come, but if it could be something that tips the scale, we should be able, ready and willing to do so.
Yeah, great. And how about business development, Chris?
Yeah. Well, and Chris makes a really good point about Tractor Supply. I mean, we did the same thing with the RV business next to the transfer station. We offered them a tax incentive, and they were looking at another community, but they came to Newtown. The site was perfect for what they wanted to do. So we gave up a little bit of the tax, the initial tax, kind of for that long-term vision of keeping them here and landing that bigger payment as we go along, which is very important. It's difficult. We have a lot of existing space in town that's vacant. Santo Plaza, for example, lots of vacant storefronts. What I would like to see is our economic development department kind of work with the owners of, say, Santo Plaza to see if there can be something done to maybe redesign that plaza. Make some investments in, bring in some businesses to the existing storefronts that are vacant. I mean, not only is it an eyesore, but we're not maximizing the amount of tax money we can be taking in. As Chris said, we have a disproportionate share of residences in town that pay a larger share of our taxes. And with each revaluation, our commercial values keep going down. And that's not only in Newtown, that's a statewide trend, which forces property owners, homeowners, to pay a larger share of the taxes. And that's getting more difficult to do. We on the Legislative Council are very mindful of that. So we have to start, in my opinion, with the existing spaces. I don't want to keep building more, more commercial, developments until we've really looked at the existing spaces. Can they be redesigned, renovated? Can we derive more income from those spaces?
Great. So let's talk a little bit about Newtown and the environment. There's the Superfund, the Batch Elder plant that's out by Swamp Road. Thoughts about trying to develop some of those areas? I'll leave that open to anybody.
That is definitely a tricky one because it's brownfield site. I do know loosely that the steel that's there could be sold. I've heard around the $2 million mark, but you have to have someone who wants to buy it who can go in there and do that. If we don't have the money to develop it, we cannot clean it up and develop it. But if we sell it to a developer who then wants to sell it back to us, we will not be able to buy it back either. So we do have an energy commission and we have an economic development director who should be working together in figuring some of that out because we can benefit without getting rid of town land. To Chris's point, we are balancing open space with economic development. Why are we building on open space when we could fill the buildings that are here? I would start with, could we get a nicer sign for 3 Main Street that's for sale? And it looks like it was printed on my home printer, and that doesn't look appealing to anyone who is driving down Main Street and might consider developing that. It's little things like that. How about our website being updated? Newtown's open for business. Look what we have open, and you can click a link if you're a developer. I'm sure they know all the open spaces, but it shows that you are keeping that in the forefront. And I think those little things can go a long way. Again, like Chris said, we're not in charge of planning and zoning or anything in a legislative way, but we definitely can be more proactive in the easy ways. The First Selectman's office can do that, and I think they should be doing that. We're open for business, and we have a lot of space that is very appealing. Let's use it.
Great. All right. Tell me what you think your vision for Newtown in 5 to 10 years would be, Chris.
So this is hard because I grew up here, right? So like,
You must have seen a lot of changes.
well, I was gonna say I'm in the camp that really loved what I grew up in. So like, I don't want to see Newtown radically transformed. I would love to see some more affordable housing so that people, I want to say my age, but I'm almost 40 now. Like people like me when I was younger can afford to live here, right? Because if I didn't have the perfect storm of the housing crisis offering lower housing values when I was entering the market and a little help from Dad, I'd probably be living in a different community. And this is the community I grew up in. It's a community I love. 5 to 10 years from now, my son will be, he'll still be in college, but he'll be close to wanting to buy a house. And I would like Newtown to be a place that he could afford to live and not have to have, the help I had to live here.
Yep, great. All right. Thank you all for joining. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on Common Ground.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I didn't know if your last one was 2 minutes long, but I got the 2-minute mark. So